Welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about the CRKT Woods Kangee tomahawk. I finally got the garage a little bit cleaned out. You can't see anything else in here. The rest is a disaster, but finally got it straightened out enough that I can finish making some videos out here. So I started doing a review on this tomahawk about 8 months ago. I got the CRKT Nobo and the Kangee and did a review on the Nobo, and then we moved and I never finished doing the review on the Kangees. As we do when I do a review, first I'll go over the specs and features of this tomahawk. Then I will give you my use, what I've been using it for, and then I'll give you some pros and cons and some final thoughts about this thing. So this is a spike tomahawk. Clearly it's got a blade on one side, spike on the back. The head here is made of a 1055 carbon steel. It comes with a 19-inch hickory handle. When they ship, they'll ship separate like this, and then you just put it together. Pretty simple. Sometimes the handles will need a little bit of fitting to get them to seat in there correctly because wood changes with temperature and moisture and things. And then you just tap it in. My Harbor Freight dead blow mallet exploded. Need to go get a new one. The head on this, from the tip of the spike to the edge of the blade, is about 9.5 inches. The blade itself, from the handle to the edge of the blade, is 4 1/4 inches, and on the back this spike is 3.5 inches. It's actually a little more. It's like 3 5/8 inches. I'll put the measurements down below and some conversions into other units for other folks from countries that haven't gone to the moon yet. Cutting edge here, it's a little less than 3 1/4 inches, so it's like 3 3/16. Blade on this is pretty thick, 3/8 of an inch up here and then tapering down. The spike on the back is about a 1/2 inch thick here and then tapering down. Now as far as weight, the head weighs 1 pound 5.2 ounces. The total weight of the tomahawk with the handle is 1 pound 15 ounces. Price on these right now is anywhere between $40 to $60, depending on where you find them. Now that we've taken a look at the features of this tomahawk, let me tell you what I have used this for. So whenever I get a new axe or a new tool, I try to look at how the manufacturer advertises that tool. I like to see if a tool works for the job that it is advertised to be used for. Now on their website, CRKT describes this as a two-handed camp axe for off-the-grid living, something to that effect. That might not be an exact quote. So my use was for chopping wood. I used this for clearing some brush, clearing bushes. I did use this to break up some pallets and things before we moved. In using this, I've used it both with the handle that it is sold with, the 19-inch handle. I've also used it with a longer handle that I made for these. This is a 26-inch handle. This is just a sledgehammer handle that I bought at the hardware store. I cut off the end that would go into the sledgehammer head, and it didn't take a lot of work to get it to fit into the Woods Kangee, and also same handle fits into the Woods Chogan and into the CRKT Berserker as well. This longer handle just gives me a little more reach and more chopping power, so I like the longer handle on there when I'm doing work like I had been doing, clearing some of those bushes and small trees and stuff out. I also used the spike on the back here as a picaroon for picking up and moving logs and things. And it worked pretty well for that. If you're not familiar with a picaroon, this is a picaroon. It's a tool made for moving wood, moving logs, chunks of wood, slabs of wood. I made a video about the picaroon recently and using it to move and stack firewood. It's a great tool, really handy if you move a lot of wood around. Moving firewood with this and having the axe on that side, this functioned kind of like the mythical axeroon, with the pickaroon pick on one side and a small axe blade on the other side for picking up and moving logs and chunks of wood, and then smacking off little branches and things with the axe side. Not sure that it was the best for moving wood around. It wasn't designed for that, obviously, but it did work. So that was an interesting use for that. And this longer handle, definitely a must if you're using it that way for reaching out and grabbing pieces of wood or swinging down, sticking pieces on the ground without bending over, which is really why I like using a pickaroon for firewood. So now let's talk about some pros and cons. So this is a cool tomahawk. This is definitely has got those tactical points. If you're looking for that spike tomahawk or boarding axe type tomahawk, this one has that look to it, and it's definitely got that tactical or cool feeling to it, and it can be a lot of fun just to mess around with. Another pro is the spike gives you some more unique functions that you aren't going to find with a lot of other small axes or tomahawks. That spike can be used for sticking and picking up wood, like I used it for, clearing brush out of the way. It can be used for digging. My last pro is that this does have some decent chopping abilities. It's got some good weight up there in the head. If you're chopping little stuff up for firewood, this will work. So now let's talk about some cons. First of all, this is not a two-handed camp axe. Using it certainly doesn't feel like a camp axe that I would want to use out in an off-the-grid situation. The head looks more like a boarding axe to me. The way the spike is shaped, it doesn't penetrate super well. The point down here and this curve down, if you hit at any sort of an angle, you're not going to get any penetration with that spike. You've got to hit pretty much directly on at a 90-degree angle. If it's tipped up much at all, it's just going to glance off. So that spike is definitely more of a pulling, like moving stuff out of the way kind of spike, and not necessarily a sticking into things sort of spike. I don't think that it is as useful as a camp tool with the spike than a regular hatchet or something that has the hammerhead on the pole. Also, I might just be a more clumsy than average person, but I've managed to stab myself with this spike a number of times, and even knowing that the spike is there, just using this thing, chopping up brush, I have still managed to either stab myself with the spike, or when I'm using the spike, stab myself with the bottom of the blade. Maybe that's just me. My final thoughts on this. This is a really cool tomahawk, but I think like all of the CRKT tomahawks, they fall into that weird middle area where they're not quite a camping axe, but they're too heavy to be that like tactical tomahawk for, I don't know, chopping fruit or whatever it is the mall ninjas do these days. If you want to get a tomahawk style axe and you're going to be using it for camping, chopping wood, you want to do something like that, this is probably not the one I would get. I like the Woods Chogan with the hammer, but if you want something that will chop wood that looks sort of like an old boarding axe, or if you want to get something that you could easily turn into a very functional axaroon for moving firewood around, this might be a good option for that. I think that's what I'm going to do with this, is probably modify the spike here a bit to give it a better shape for picking up wood. I think with some work, this could be a really interesting tool to use out splitting up firewood and moving wood around. Those are just my thoughts. You guys tell me your thoughts. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. Leave them down there. I like to read comments. I like to see what people think. I like to see what other people are doing with their tomahawks. I don't always reply to them because I get busy doing other stuff, but I do see every comment. I do read them all. Do you think they're cool? Do you think they're silly? Do you want one? You probably do. I have one, and I think it's fun. It's a lot of fun to swing around. Thanks for watching. I appreciate all of you. Go out, do some dad stuff. If you're not a dad, go find your dad, and I'll see you next time. I'm no expert on fighting with tomahawks and axes. I think all the experts are over on Reddit.